Hello, a very quick update, this and that really. I've been away, in fact I've been a little bit ill, I had the lurgy. I hope none of you have had this bit of a winter, I don't know, the doctor wouldn't tell me what it was, they just gave me pills. Nice pills, the ones you're not supposed to take too many of. Antibiotics, not to open a whole can of worms there, but they got rid of this thing, but I've kind of been a little bit out of action with it. Having said that, I did manage to, while this was going on, I did have a long weekend in Wales, visiting Portmeirion, where there was a musical event on related to the old punk rock band The Skids. Very fun it was too, but you know, I always tend to find a couple of cheap paperbacks when I'm out there. But first things first, to business. I've had more coffees bought for me. This is just very unexpected and quite touching, really. So thank you, NHS Cycle Commuter. That's very generous. And also Dan, on top of Paul from a couple of months ago. So this doesn't work like Patreon, does it? You can't do unique content for your coffee club. I mean, maybe there's a concept there, coffee club videos. Maybe I cash these in, drink a lot of coffee. This will have to happen in the morning, not because, you know, it'll ruin my sleep otherwise, but if I get all kind of hopped up on more caffeine than is good for me and then do a really manic video in the morning, how much fun would that be? It could be excruciating for everyone concerned, but it's a thought. In the meantime, I'll plough on in my not terribly caffeinated state at this point. I haven't had a coffee since the morning. So, in fact, yeah, there were literary associations with this Skids weekend because Richard Jobson is. I suppose he's known for being a bit of a writer on the side as well as a singer, and he's kind of been beavering away with his cottage industry publications, which probably another video is the place to get into that, but I'll sort of just stay off the music bit for this one and then go on it at a later date, I suppose. But anyway, while I was out in Porthmadog, which was, you know, even for winter, I've never been to Wales in winter before. It's very, very pretty. Actually, you got a bit of sunshine, and I could, you know, though I was hawking up a load of really disgusting phlegm, I was able to get, not into the mountains, but at least into the hills behind a place called Tremadoc, just outside Porthmadog, where you can kind of zigzag up. It looks like cliffs, but you can kind of, there are gentle routes up them, and then you're kind of looking down. It's probably a couple of 100 metres up. It's very nice. Anyway, you know, while the weather held, which, you know, you've got to expect a bit of rain out there as well. But anyway, I didn't do badly. Some of these were freebies from supermarket there, or very reasonably priced charity shop books. At first of which, this looked, at first glance, it looked like one of those kind of late 70s, early 80s paperbacks with, you know, vague promises of eroticism that the book then kind of semi-delivers on. But I think this is more a detective, a private eye story. John D. scores again. He's an immensely likeable private eye unearths a murky plot including sunken treasure, crooked lawyers, and a string of murders. I don't know, maybe there'll be sexy bits in it as well. I've never heard of I don't know the writer. I don't think I've encountered him before, but there it was on I think this was one of the supermarket freebies. After that, of course, Leslie Thomas. I do need to get into Leslie Thomas in more detail at some point. I've been meaning to for ages. Of course, everyone, I suppose, associates him with The Virgin Soldiers, which I did pick up and reread probably a couple of years ago. And, you know, I think I read some of his books in my teens, and the takeaway when I read The Virgin Soldiers as an adult, it wasn't what I remembered Leslie Thomas being when I was a kid, put it that way. But we'll get into that again in a separate video when I get round to these things. But this is another, I think, a later title of his, Ormerod's Landing, which is set in the Second World War. Seems to be kind of a cross between an espionage thing and a detective thing, so rather intriguing kind of genre splice there. I'm not sure the year this was published, so 1978. And in spite of everything I've said, I'm going to veer back to music because one of my finds was David Hepworth's 1971. Now, Hepworth, I dimly remember it. I think he was one of the people that was one of the presenters of Whistle Test in the early 80s, if I've got this right. Him and, Jesus, what was the other guy? This is going to bother me now. Anyway, 1971. Actually, it's not a year that, I don't know. I mean, I'll find out when I dig into it, but, you know, for me, there's kind of a bit of a lull between your kind of 60s Stooges, MC5, what have you, late 60s stuff, and then your sort of glam period, I suppose, or your New York underground period, picking up, I suppose, 1972 onwards. A 71, I'm not sure. Who's he talking about on the back? Zeppelin? Bowie, Stones, Pink Floyd, yeah, Rod Stewart. Well, yeah, that aspect of it could be interesting. Anyway, this is, I think, a charity shop find for a very reasonable price. Last up, now I read this as a kid. I think, well, early teens maybe, or early secondary school. I think my mum was trying to steer me towards vaguely wholesome literary matter. I mean, of course, I think anyone my age would have gone through C.S. Lewis at junior school with the whole Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe. I binged the whole series. I did at the age of probably eight-ish. I did buy in, admittedly, and it's kind of, looking at it now, it's kind of odd. You know, I don't know how much really I need. I was about to say leprechauns. That's not what I'm thinking of, is it? What are they called? Fawns. I don't know if I need fawns and centaurs as part of my literary diet. You know, I think Lewis, from my kind of layman's knowledge of his background, I think he was trying to kind of interject a spiritual or a Christian kind of message into a literary form that would be palatable to young readers. I think this one is pitched rather older, actually, to be fair. It's more of a as the cover would probably indicate, in a science fiction kind of vein. I do remember enjoying it quite at the time, actually, but picking it up again, you know, and I did have some kind of rainy day downtime in the B&B. Just forgot what a good writer he was. He's really good. You know, well, it's interesting, you know, the resonance of this. It was, I think, written in 1938, so it's dealing with rapidly emerging technologies, or rapidly developing technologies, and a very stunted, perverted state of human morality happening at the same time. You know, very topical and related, quite prescient, really. I mean, he couldn't have been very in on, I mean, I don't know. Was he connected with Secret Service? I mean, I have no idea, but you know, he seems to have kind of latched onto what actually was happening in laboratories and stuff at the time. The kind of the joke about Werner von Braun. I aimed for the stars. I sometimes hit London. That. What later became known as perverted science. Now, you know, that's an interesting aspect of this, where we're introduced by an unwitting, you know, the narrator is this rather unwitting country rambler type on his holidays, and he runs into, coincidentally, an old school friend at this kind of weird mansion kind of setup where something is going on. And it turns out there's kind of rogue experiments into rocketry. So the two themes really hit me from this, revisiting this. One being the theme that bloke that you remember from public school as being a right arsehole, what do you know, he's still a massive arsehole in adult life. As exhibit one, right? Secondly, the theme that interplanetary travel being the hobby of choice for the biggest arseholes on the planet. That, I don't know, do you want me to draw a diagram here? That struck me as well, but his description of the guy's abduction and sort of realising that he's looking out the window at the moon a lot closer than he would normally expect. The way Lewis has kind of extrapolated the science and the technology into some believable scenario of what it would be like, you know, if they'd kind of got this technology, for want of a better expression, off the ground by the late 30s. Really, really interesting handling of that. You know, he goes into kind of, you know, there's been a lot of his work, he goes into, I suppose, kind of more spiritual areas. The silent planet refers to Earth. I mean, the idea being that once the narrator finds himself on this planet, he's given to understand from his kidnappers that there's this race of weird beings on this planet known as the Sorn, and they're deeply sinister, and that he's in trouble when they get their hands on him. He's like a bargaining chip with them or something. But it turns out it's a very different situation. Once the guy breaks loose from these kidnappers and establishes the reality of what is happening on this planet, then it's a rather different situation. And I think it kind of, I suppose, deals with some sort of spiritual system of which planet Earth has somehow become unmoored. I mean, I haven't finished. I mean, and his age, it's seriously decades since I first read it. But that's my take on it anyway. It's nice to run into it again. It was this edition I used to have, this very artwork, by the way, which is a Pan Paperbacks. I'm going to say 1970 something. Originally published 1938. This edition 1975. So anyway, that's that for that little haul. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I hope you're keeping away from the late winter lurgies. And thank you again, Coffee Club. And we will catch up soon, I trust.